Hello, everybody, from the wintry January 13th, 2024 SNHU Generative Writing Workshop. Today has been a fancy little day. I have all new material for us, and I think next time is when we're going to do the improv prompt. Want to give Lori and Em, well, Em's probably done it with you all. Have you done it in the between weeks yet?
Not yet, but I've trained myself already with just random words that I think of, and I'm like, let's put what was it? An electrical outlet in a
Nice.
fantasy world. So I was like, how are we gonna do? I don't know, but we're gonna figure this out.
Nice. You're warming up for it then, definitely. Okay.
Yep.
So we are going into module 6, right? Yep. And do you have, Em's already asked a question for module 6 about including sources in such a short paper. And I've said, because it's about your goals as a writer, you might do something like use an outside resource to define your genre, or if you say that I want to be a, hard-boiled journalist, then maybe use a resource that talks about what that does. Whatever your goals are, that's a great place to find the professional conversation that's happening about either the goals or the genre or something like that, just to remind yourself. I think the course designers are just trying to really drive home something that I believe in, which is always be a part of the professional conversation. And I'm going to call really quick, like on Jesse and Randall and Suzanne and all you people who have been putting together, Kirsten, who've been putting together a professional platform you're moving towards. Hasn't it been amazing to be researching those journals, and hasn't your perspective entirely changed? Yeah, so it really, the fact that you have been immersing yourselves in that world, everything that I've been saying makes that much more sense, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So but that was this week's assignment, right? That's due tomorrow on our goals. Next week, week 6 is characters. So also used references. It doesn't specifically say we need to put in expert sources for the character one.
Oh, no, I was just asking questions about this week's because I have mine written. I just don't know where I'm going to put that scholarly source in. So
yeah, let me pop over to my 6 announcement to see what I thought.
Oh, okay.
When I wrote the announcement.
I think next week is just a discussion board, like a regular discussion board, and a journal assignment. Am I correct in that?
Yeah, but it's on characters, and I just want to know if we need expert resources in that. And do we just need like however many characters we want to pick out in that story? 1, 2, 3. We don't have to do all of them, right?
No, I think you should just do one.
Just one. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Because it's a really short essay again.
Yes. Yeah.
And most of them only lend themselves to one. So, you might be picking Lieutenant Cross, you might be picking that unnamed character in Stop and Go. It's really super awesome, amazing reading next week.
I started it. That one has a twist ending.
Which one?
First one, Flannery.
Oh yeah, definitely. She always
like going along. It's like, whoa.
Yeah.
Which one is Lieutenant Cross in?
He's in The Things They Carried.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
I was like, that sounds like The Things They Carried, but I didn't want to be wrong.
Yeah, and so it is I believe that I have not said that you need to bring in an outside source for this one. That's because it's such a short paper and it's your personal analysis. However, you'll find that Charter says some really great things about character that will make sense within your piece. So there isn't any reason not to, but I believe I'm not grading you. You know what I should do? Okay. I should look at my little grading document to tell you how I feel about it. Because I can't always remember how I feel about it. Hold on, I'll be right there. I do feel strongly about it. And the reason why is it's not just character. You are bringing in a fictional element that works in conjunction with character. Mm-hmm. And so that's a great place for you to get us on common ground. Like say you say setting is an important, like the character can't be who the character is without the setting. Maybe that's something you choose, which is like a no-brainer for Vietnam, right? Do you mean the same thing about setting as I mean? So that's a great place to define what you mean by the element you choose. If it's, you know, figurative language, if it's like, what are elements of fiction? You know, whichever one you're choosing, that's a great time to say, here's how I'm defining, based on like this expert, this is how I'm defining this element, and move forward from there. So yes,
I always have to look at those like elements of fiction pages in the back of the book, because I'm like, what's fiction?
Yeah.
So
yeah, well, what's fiction? That's hilarious. Great. Okay, so any other things as we're heading into the next week? Great questions. These little smiles and these little, I can see you guys typing, it's hilarious. So I want to throw us around a little bit. I only was at one term at Bennington when Major Jackson was there, the poet who's the bonus one. And I'm going to start there with us today because he's just an incredible poet. And what a name. Like whoever picked Major Jackson, brilliant parents. So, right? Never been in the military as far as I could tell. Anyway, he's a beautiful poet, and this is still us in January thinking about how we're moving forward into the next year, and I would like us to do it from here. Do I have anybody interested in reading poetry to get us started?
I'll read it.
Thanks, Jessie.
Okay, this is the stuff you posted in the Slack, right?
Oh, right. And let me see if it'll fit in the chat. I don't know if it's too long. Hold on.
I'll get it pulled up on here regardless.
Hold on. Yeah, you read it from the Slack, but for the people who aren't on Slack, let me put it, I'm putting it in two bunches so that, there we go.
it's not Dorothy Parker. Okay.
Now we're going to start with Major Jackson.
Okay.
Because I'm throwing things around.
All right. So this is Let Me Begin Again by Major Jackson. Let me begin again as a quiet thought in the shape of a shell slowly examined by a brown child on a beach at dawn, straining to see their future. Let me begin, this time, knowing the drumming in my dreams is me inheriting the earth, is morning lighting up the rivers. Let me burn my vanities, old music in the pines, sifters of scotch, a day moon like a signature of night. This time, let me circle the island of my fears only once, then live like a raging waterfall and grow a magnificent mustache. Let me not ever be the birdcage or the serrated blade or the empty season. Dear glacier, dear sea of stars, dear leopards disintegrating at the outer limits of our greed, soon we will encounter you only in motivational tweets. Reader, I should have married you sooner. This time, let me not sleep like the prophet who believes he's seen infinity. Let me run at breakneck speeds towards sceneries of doubt. I have no more dress rehearsals to attend. Look closer. I'm licking my lips.
It's a weird ending.
I think it got a little more unhinged as time went on.
Characteristic of great poetry, right?
Yeah, because it felt like a natural progression to a degree, you know?
Yeah.
Mm.
So this one's a little weird, and I love going a little weird on us. What are things that are standing out to you in meaningful ways? Like what was creating meaning for you as you were reading this?
The birdcage of serrated blade.
Isn't that awesome?
That's what stuck out, and I was like, wow.
And then you say to yourself, I need to read this again, right? Because I need to figure out for sure what it means. Let me not ever be the birdcage or the serrated blade. Raging waterfall. Sarah, that stood out for me too. Definitely. What's going on? I know it's not fair because you just read it, but what kinds of conjecture can you make about what's going on in this poem?
I actually like the a day moon like a signature of night, because growing up, I always only thought of the moon at night, not visible during the day. So it made me think, reading the poem, that this is like she's contrasting the before and after of her life, like where she is now, where she thought she would be, where she's going to be. And just that to me was the sentence that made me, think how everything's going to change.
I love how you gendered it as a woman, right?
Well, yeah, the moon has always been a goddess.
Well, sure.
Mother
But not everybody
Earth. I mean,
not everybody agrees with it, although the magicians would.
yeah, definitely.
So do we see Sarah's, oh, it's going fast. Yeah, nice double play on the word morning, right, Sarah? And that might be intentional. And Colleen says, it reminds me a tiny bit of the I will wear purple poem. Yeah. So this is somebody writing about the way that maybe things could be done differently, if you got a chance to start over. And what sort of cliche phrase goes with no more dress rehearsals? What do we hear that applied to a lot?
Music.
Weddings.
I'm thinking of the I'm thinking
Brianna, like the show must go on style of like thinking.
I'm thinking life isn't a dress rehearsal, right?
Oh.
I've heard that phrase.
No, my
In
husband's a
theater, we say-
musician, so dress rehearsal for me is musician.
Right.
In theater,
absolutely.
we say you're only as good as your best dress rehearsal. So
Right.
I just thought of like Hell Week, basically. When you said dress rehearsal, I was like, oh, Hell Week.
What is Hell Week?
Hell Week is the week before a show or goes on, and you have like, for my schooling, I was at school from, I think it was 7 to like 10 at night doing schoolwork,
Yeah.
and then having to do tech and dress rehearsal and all of that. So
even in community theater, you're there like all day and all night. Typically it's like a tech rehearsal first, which is like a cue to cue with all the technicians doing
Right.
just the lighting and the sound and making sure that all works. Maybe you have actors on stage spotting the lights and saying like just the cue lines. And then you're doing a full dress rehearsal of both the first act and the second act. And usually it's pretty bad.
And so what's happening? Like, and Sarah, that's exactly where I want to go. What's happening when you're dress rehearsing for a big play like this? The play is supposed to represent what?
Changes, life and changes.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like the end game, right? It's like the goal, it's like, but it's pristine and perfect in that sense. Like that's what you're trying to get to.
Right.
And I think part of what this poem sort of realizes is that you don't.
Right. I mean, so while you're dress rehearsing, you're living. And so this poem is asking you to back up and say what you're doing, even as you're in dress rehearsal, is not a dress rehearsal. That's your life. Right. And so Sarah pointed us towards Dear Glacier, Dear Sea of Stars, Dear Leopards. He's addressing the entities or describing them as dear. And what I wanted to say is, of course, we recognize glaciers, leopards disintegrating. What like contemporary issue could he be pointing towards in those lines?
Global warming and extinction.
Climate change.
Yeah, climate change, global warming, the changes that are happening in our environment.
To me it was even, it could, I think maybe a double meaning. For me, it was even more visceral. Dear leopards disintegrating at the outer limits of our greed, like as though the greed itself and our outer limit are the leopards. Like it's like tearing at us in a really visceral way.
Exactly. So go to the last sentence. What is it?
I'm licking my lips.
Licking my lips.
That's the greed.
I see that with the leopards. I don't see the greed with the glacier or the Sea of Stars.
Well, I think it's because like if we're going with the literal meaning of like climate change, it's because corporate greed and our own desire to continue expanding like humanity is what's driving all of these other things into extinction. So like, the leopards, if we're thinking about like the rainforests and stuff, it's quite literally greed of companies that's robbing them of their homes.
And robbing us of glaciers and seas of stars even too. There's I had to take a French literature class in college, and we studied for our text Notre Dame de Paris, which was a beautiful musical. And in it is a song that became quite popular called Belle. And it's these three men. Do you know it? Oh my gosh. But it's these three men, and they're all talking, they're all singing about how they want to possess this woman, the bohemian, and each of them prays to a different thing, much in the same way that he keeps in this poem continues to pray to a different thing. And one of them prays to Lucifer, and one of them but they each pray to a different thing. And I think it's really interesting to think of each of the things that they are praying to, because it really shows each of these characters in a more and more depraved light. And I think that's interesting about this poem. In the same kind of way, as we progress with the things that he's praying to, what are we destroying, if you look at it that way?
Yeah.
And did anyone else get this weird interplay of like this like text space that he kind of goes into at the end, where he's discussing tweets and talking about no more dress rehearsals? And like the place that my head went to is that because of social media, like we are always performing, you know, so
Right.
like the tweets, that the motivational tweets about all these things, that's a performance because we're not actually acting, we're just tweeting about it, right?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. I've even read that
Yeah.
like companies who talk about like going carbon neutral or whatever are doing so with an odd loophole combination of buying carbon credits and sort of, like weird FM that that is not really true,
Right.
which strikes me as very dress rehearsal-y.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It's definitely creating a brand. So with no more dress rehearsals, let's look at the prompt and get writing, because this has been such a great analysis of the poem. I really want to see what you're going to come up with on your own. And the prompt is, oh, one of us named me should put that in the chat. Hold on.
Please and thank you.
There we go. Write a letter to something found in nature about what you plan to do in 2024, keeping in mind that you have no more dress rehearsals. So it doesn't mean that you're going to like save the leopard, but you could be writing to the leopard about your own goals, or pick something cool, like old growth trees, the sequoias or something, that we find in Richard Fuzzy Britches' Overstory, right? Who wrote that? Richard. Oh, well, doesn't matter. If you haven't read Overstory, it's a slog and it's worth it. Write a letter to something found in nature about what you plan to do in 2024, keeping in mind you have no more dress rehearsals. On your marks, get set, write. have about a minute left. Time's up. Come on back. Oh, look, I made myself a maxi pad. Hold on.
You say a maxi pad?
Yeah, I left an I on my name when I changed my name.
Oh,
I mean, that's one of the only ways that maxi is spelled without, right? Maybe not. Anyway. Whew, we can just move right past that concept and into what we're working on today. Okay. How did it go?
It was easier than I thought.
Really?
Yeah, as soon as I started writing, well, actually I started writing before you said go, but I for some reason I'm really passionate about sea turtles. So it turned into sea turtles. I was like, okay, we'll just go with this.
All right. Do you want to read what you got?
Sure.
Awesome.
To the sea turtle whose life is being slowly torn from them. Through though one person can't do much to change the world, I want to start thinking about what I buy and how I what did I write? What I buy and how close how what I don't I write way too fast.
This is a common problem. Please don't feel worried about it. We very much can't read our own handwriting. So
nothing plastic, nothing that doesn't go back into the earth. I want to start thinking about something other than myself and how other ecosystem like yours will be affected, because there will be no do-over per se. Once you're gone, and we will start to make changes after that, but not until then, because we don't think about anything until something bad happens.
nice.
So
I feel like you just threw a truth on the page. Everybody else,
yeah,
you know, like it's like
we don't think about our own little our own consequences until we don't have anything anymore.
Right. We don't think ahead.
No.
So what else can we say except for yeah? Does anybody have something more to say except for yeah?
I mean, I'm starting to compost and buy less plastic and buy like things that can be recycled, because I mean I don't know about the rest of you, but I still cut up those little like bottles, the plastic that the bottles come in, because I saw that one video of I think it was a duck or something, and I felt bad, but you know, why continue to put it into the ocean when we can just get rid of it?
Right.
You know.
Right. Anything else from anyone? I felt like there's a really nice correlation between sea turtles and being more conscientious and the Major Jackson poem for sure.
Right.
Yeah. Thanks, Sam. Good job.
You're welcome.
All right. Who wants to go next? Elisa?
I can go. Yeah, I can go next.
Okay.
I'm still a bit confused about how everything is, that poem was about climate, but anyway, I tried writing a poem because I really couldn't think of anything to write. I promised to look at the desert brush, at the dried out dirt and the dusty air and the dry heat, and feel the dry heat. I won't compare you to the lush, vibrant colors of Seattle, to the waters of the lake and the sea, to the smell of the ocean and the salt in the air. I'll hear the noises of the strip, the ka-ching bings of the slots and the racket of the people. And I won't compare you to the silence of our town, the caw of the eagles and the yapping of our dogs. I promise to look at you with eyes wide open and not compare you to what I might be leaving behind, even for a few months.
Oh, very nice.
Mm-hmm.
I like how many sound words you incorporated into that. The caw of the eagle just got me. I just really love the sound. It's good.
And we all know that that's a complicated thing to work with, and it worked in what Elisa wrote. But using onomatopoeia in adult writing has to be subtly done, like Elisa just did. You know, if you were like, boom, she turned and looked the other way, you know, now that's closer to middle grade or young children's writing, right? But in her case, those sounds brought us in, the ka-ching ming, the ka-ka. Stuttering with that one. Yeah. So fair warning, be careful with onomatopoeia. Well done with it, Elisa.
Thank you.
And it also sounded very poetic. I mean, I can't write a poem at all, so it was beautifully written.
Usually when I write poems, I mean, it's angsty like Plath. I don't mean to write like Plath, but it just comes out depressing. So the fact that this one really, it wasn't sure, you know, completely dark. There was some hope at the end. I was like, that's different. It was good.
Yeah,
it was good.
I wrote a poem too.
You're
just gonna continue with it?
Others in this group will in the Discord group will know that I'm in a poem mood this week. But yeah, so sure. Okay. Dear beautiful garden, unreachable, we the fallen, your remnants we rape, and from this limited vantage point I mourn the losses, feeling without tools to recompense for your loss. Caregivers, so many refuse to be. So I will but small impact make, striving for less waste and more sustainability. So will I go then, immeasurable slow, as your glaciers grow.
Ooh, I'm typing that in. Hold on. Really slow as your glaciers grow.
I loved I will but small impact make. I mean, that's poetry.
Yeah.
Look what syntax can do just by turning those words around, right?
I think I like to do that in poems. I think it's the place where I play the most with syntax, I guess. Yeah.
Well, it feels poety to play with syntax, doesn't it?
Yeah, I guess it does. Yeah, for sure.
I wonder, where do we think in fiction or nonfiction could we play with syntax in a similar way without being off-putting? Like one of the things I notice is you might have in setting, and in dialogue, somebody might like prop up and say, I will but little impact make, as if they're being Shakespearean or something. But that's a place where you put in that kind of,
I was immediately thinking when you said that of the characters, like your character could be a portion of characterization. Like if you think of Yoda from the Star Wars movies, you know, like syntax is a particular part of his whole character. So, and then you can take that even a little bit further, and you can say that syntax also makes up like how different sets of people in those different places speak to each other. You know, the Jedis have a certain kind of syntax that they use when they talk about things versus the Empire, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and our Appalachian people would argue that were you just writing that to each other? Y'all have a syntax too, right?
Oftentimes, sure.
You can.
Yeah.
You can.
Yeah,
Which
yeah,
is,
yeah.
I mean, Jesse, you're like a code talker, you know, you go from being Appalachian to being like
Got
the
a big
like
switch going
Japanese
on.
to having studied the French play, I mean, musical, you
Mhm.
know, I mean, like, you know, you're a jack of all trades for sure, but in a, what you're a Jill of all cultures.
Yeah, my language code switch looks more like a gear shift in a car, you know.
Well, I grind the gears when I do mine.
For
Colleen,
some reason,
that ending with immeasurably slow as your glaciers grow, I loved
Mhm.
that there was internal rhyme in that line and really
Mhm.
summed up beautifully what you were doing with the entire thing. Does
Oh,
anybody else
thanks.
have anything you want to add for Colleen? I'm just bumping along because there's a lot of us and I want everybody to be able to read.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought of
really like
Arnie Grape.
And I don't know Arnie Grape. What's that?
It's What's Eating Gilbert Grape, that
Mm.
the movie,
Oh,
where that character is disabled and he doesn't really speak as well, and he doesn't understand big concepts like death. And so he goes into his mother's room. His mother had died in her sleep because she's quite overweight, and he thinks that she's sleeping. And then, you know, as time goes on, you can see that the innocence that he had is slowly ripped away from him when he realizes that his mother isn't coming back.
Ah,
So
interesting. Yeah, what a connection.
I think it was DiCaprio's first like Oscar-winning role, maybe.
Yeah, yeah.
So.
There's a book. The movie was made from a book. So
Oh, there is.
I can't
I
help
should
but
read
think
that
that
then.
the book would be worth reading, which I haven't read, but I've seen the movie. All right, so we've had Colleen, Elisa, and M. Who and the remaining, I can't count, 5 are interested in.
I'll go.
Thanks, Jesse.
It's not poetry.
Okay.
I'm breaking the chain.
Darn it.
All right. This is to the mud around my home that I haven't built yet. All right. It rained all day yesterday, but these freezing temperatures guaranteed that you, dear slop of muddy lawn, will hold on to that moisture for just a little longer. You will not circulate the droplets of life to whatever hibernating seeds of crabgrass or other green stuff I don't want. Please, for me, hold on to it for just a little longer until spring, when I arrive with armfuls of meadow starters and swaths of moss that I'll lay over you like a sewing pattern in my folder. When I'll lay a quilt of the plants you used to know before lawns took the blank stare of trophy plaques, before they took on the spotlight and burned underneath the collective stare of insect phobias and city conveniences. Hold on to that water for the dogwood I've bought but haven't planted, and the maples and the willows, for the foxglove and lily of the valley, for the pawpaws and the apples. Hold on for me just a little longer, please.
Ooh, that absolutely could have been a
Grand
poem.
plans for this lawn.
For the house that's not yet built.
No, but we have a foundation.
Nice. Nice.
Hey,
hey,
getting
that's
there.
a start.
Yeah, it's getting there. Yeah.
It was lovely.
Okay, everybody, we were typing like crazy. Let's talk about what we found.
I would like you to come plant my lawn. Just tear up the grass. It's fine. Just come on over.
Sure,
Let's
just
go.
let me know your zone and we'll start working on it.
I love it.
I need to
I'm not-
replace mine. My lawn's coming up, being ripped up and replaced, hopefully in
Mhm.
Aprilish. So if you want to come over to Seattle, you know,
Plant native. That's my big thing.
that's the problem. Is it is
Yeah.
all native. It's all crabgrass. Awful.
That's all that's native. No, I loved that. I loved the longing in it. Just that you wanted to give something to this mud, and you were just wait a little longer for me, and
Mhm.
that sense of wanting to give it something old and some purpose and beauty, and that
Mhm.
was what really struck me.
Being a crafter, for me, it was the sewing and sewing.
Mhm.
I don't know which one you did with an O or an E,
Mhm.
but both work because the sewing worked with a quilt pattern, but also the sewing of a quilt of the pattern of the seeds. So for me,
Mhm.
that was the two that really worked.
Definitely. Wordplay, for sure. In 6
I
months,
just,
no
right.
less.
And just starting with the slop of muddy lawn, and then from there becoming this beautiful image of what it's going to be was perfect.
Yeah, it's very ugly right now. So she'll get there.
Which sewing did you mean to do?
You know, whatever it felt like in the moment, a little bit of everything, I guess, you know.
No, with an
Which
O
one
or
did
an
you write
E?
down?
Oh, I wrote the like sewing.
SEW,
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I put in my thing too. So it felt like that, but the wordplay, that's the greatest thing about hearing these out loud is we don't know what you've done and the wordplay really becomes, so evident.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Anything else from the rest of you? Or should we move on to the final four? We're in the final four. Who's next?
I can go next.
Okay, Suzanne, you're very quiet, so
Is this better?
a little.
You're still really quiet.
I'll sit closer to the mic.
Thanks.
Give us the ASMR performance, please.
To the apple tree that has known me, oh my God. To the apple tree that has known me when we were both green. I admire the highs and lows that you face through the negative wind chill that threatens to expand the water within your veins and cause you to burst. College taught me the words resilience, where no matter the moths that take residence in your leaves, sucking the nutrients out of you, or the dog that climbs your branches and breaks them because he's too big, I want to be you. I want to sit in your shade as the leaves fall, reviving me. I want the words to leave your torn flesh and sing from the birds' beaks. I want to create new items from my soul, the fruit of my labor, providing sustenance and different flavors to satisfy all cravings.
Can you do the line about what comes, I think, from the bark? Is it, I want to strip words?
Yeah, I want the words to leave your torn flesh and sing from the birds.
Nice, really nice. Yeah. Tons of writing in there. Love the repetition of I want. What else, everybody?
I did like that just the first opening to the apple tree that has known me when we were both green. I think that's what you said, right?
Green.
That was, I was like, oh, wow, that's what a neat way to think about that.
I love that.
We have, there's a nectarine tree in my backyard that has, it's in half. Because of the weight of the snow from this storm, and the tree's not coming back, and it made me think of that. It made me think, oh,
Oh, it's really sad.
it's a little.
I also love the threat to have the veins, which is such a living way to describe it, burst, right? That they could explode from freezing. And
Yeah, that was super creepy, and I liked that too.
right, and it reflected, like, it's so fun how we see our words changing in the seasons. You aren't writing about being on a beach, though you could, because the concerns of what's around you are infiltrating your words, right? It's really nice. Anyone else?
When you did the piece about the torn flesh and then it eventually transitioned to the singing of the birds, I don't know if this is what you intended, but I interpreted that as like the birds feeding on the fruit, and basically like they're sustained by it. So like the fact that they can sit there and sing is because the tree is giving that aspect up to them. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Really nice. Yeah. And Suzanne repeatedly is saying, well, the narrator is repeatedly saying, I want to be you. And that's an interesting, complicated space to be, because that means that her own gifts of torn flesh, her own things that feed people, will drain her, but she also is embracing that possibility, right? The narrator is. Yeah. Sorry for gendering the narrator because I'm not supposed to. Right. I mean, it's harder when you're sitting here writing and we know how autobiographical it probably is, but we shouldn't treat it that way. We should be all professional. Okay, we're down to Randall and Lori. Lori, were you you can shake your head if you want, but were you intending to read this time?
I'll read this time because I don't know if I'll be able to read next time. The prompt looks harder. So,
how do you know which one I'm doing? There's 3.
they all look, so I've got something for this one, so I can read. It's not very long. So.
Oh, sure. Go ahead.
Okay. Dear Ocean, I walk along your beaches every week. Your voice sometimes crashing on the rocks, sometimes inching up on the sand, but always there, relentless, talking about nature. Recycle, reuse. Have I always done that? My face reddens, not from the harsh wind blowing from the north, but from the embarrassment of knowing there's a big plastic water jug in the laundry room giving me a constant supply of cold water. But at what cost? Knowing that I tossed 2 Keurig K-cups in the garbage only this morning when Jesse was painstakingly removing coffee grounds last week and talking about reusable filters. I promise to do better. I promise 2024 will be a new beginning for me to value the environment as it deserves.
I feel so attacked by you.
Attacked because of the K-cups?
Yeah, well, last week in liminal spaces, sometimes I like to just have a rote task that my hands are doing while I listen. And so last week's rote task was emptying the coffee grounds from the K-cups so I could compost them.
But you were also talking about the reusable filters, and at the time I thought I should be doing that. I should be, and yet today I threw 2 out, so I will get there. I promise.
It's step by step, girl.
A baby step. Yep.
I'll tell you a secret though. If you really want to reuse, recompost, whatever, your best bet is ground eggshells. So they add because they have the calcium. So you microwave them for a second, otherwise the local birds will come and eat them. But that's what we do.
Yeah, add them into your coffee grounds, add them into your compost. Meanwhile, you get the reusable K-cup things, so you're not throwing the plastic away too. Yeah,
exactly.
And when you walk down I'm distracted by this too. Sorry, but when you walk down a grocery store aisle and see how many of those are boxes of K-cups, just breaks my heart.
Yep.
So much waste.
And it's what's really sad is we've done the math, and it's more expensive for me to use my beautiful and delicious French press maker than it is to buy the coffee for that than it is to use K-cup. I still use the French press maker, but
I was gonna say more expensive with money or more expensive in another way, right?
Well, right. I mean, that's just it. Like, and it's heartbreaking to see like both sides of that, because some things are more expensive because they are sustainable or organic or whatever it is, right? And some things that aren't are less expensive, and it's
so it's
more expensive. That was
and I mean you can see exactly what drives it, and Major Jackson's word greed makes sense, because just trying to eat well is maybe double the cost of, if you've watched the shows where the people are like, all we can afford is some Pepsi, you get it.
It's the truth. Yeah. So Lori, you did a great job of hitting that angst.
Yeah, you did it. We're all like, oh man, we all have a thing, right? We have something sitting out there that I know I'm doing. For example, we can't recycle glass around here, and it makes me insane. There's no place that takes it. And so
right.
So I'm throwing glass in we have to take our trash into the landfill. So we drive our dump trailer in there and dump our trash. And I'm just like, oh my God. I'm picturing that Italian guy who played the Native American Indian who's crying next to the garbage in the river. And I'm like, I'm making the garbage right there.
Literally me moving back to the States, because in Japan you get like a garbage calendar that tells you what day of the week certain trash goes out, and it gives you pictures of what goes in which trash, and it's just so organized and very focused on like recycling instead of dumping or burning, and
Right.
it's just like coming back here, and that doesn't exist.
Right.
Our
My
town
carbon footprint increased just by moving.
Our town does that, but our town also charges you by the size of the trash cans.
Yeah.
So you get, and it's a big difference between the small trash cans and the big ones. And the recycling and compost are, are free, no matter how many cans of that you have.
Interesting. Well, Randall, are you gonna take us on another angst journey? Where are we going?
I don't know. Sarah's still got to read too. She's going to.
Oh God, Sarah, God. You're just quietly down there reminding me to record. Sarah, are you gonna read this time?
Yeah, but Randall can go before me if he wants.
I don't care either way. I'll go if you want to bring it up in the back. I'll go ahead and go.
You kind of traditionally go last on the first one.
Yeah, so we
Okay.
need Sarah.
Yeah,
So
go for it.
sorry.
Dear lively depths, dear breathing heights, below the waving blades of grasses, above the unmovable mountains, there is no air, or where there is no air and where breezes are unbroken. Hardened dirt and sand, snow caps and rain heavy pillows, where the outer part of me will descend and over time nurture, and the inner part of me will expand wider than the eagle's wings, beyond what can be seen higher than canopies of trees, beyond what can be imagined by a finite mind. Where far beyond the year, when far beyond the year, the depths will feed the ethers and I will be one again.
Oh, wow, Sarah. Wow, really beautiful. I was like, what? There was no chef's kiss in there, but yes, the beyond repetition is mwah, definitely. Girl, can I get on your level?
Honestly, though, I think your line, when you said the no air and the breeze is unbroken, it felt very personal just because so much of your work has been about the difficulties of breathing. So I think like knowing your work and knowing you helped frame that line, and then continuing with that framed the rest of the poem really nicely. Well,
Yes.
prose poem. What is it? It felt poetic.
Thanks.
Yeah, it did have a really poetic feel. Really beautiful. So much imagery.
And don't you feel like there was a building tension as we began to understand that Sarah's talking about possibly not having a year finish? She earned the line. Like as she went through and she talked about, the outer part of me will feed, the inner part of me will expand beyond what eagle's wings can do, or something close to that. And then she like all of this built up until because this last line could be unearned, but it's so earned, beyond what can be imagined by a finite mind. And that just pauses us and asks us to imagine too. So as readers, suddenly we're like, well, what can we imagine, and we almost refuse to accept that our mind is finite. But it read to me, and this is just my own interpretation of it, almost like hope. Like maybe this is better. My mind can't imagine what it is, but it just felt like, because I haven't imagined how good it can be. I don't know if that's true or not, but I'm also a serious Pollyanna, so
I think that there was definitely an idea of expansion in there, though, right? How expanding outward, everything like coming from this closed place of no air and moving into this like expansion of the body, nurturing the nature and expanding outward that way, and then the mind expanding up over the trees, wider than the eagle's wings, infinite. Like that was. I do think it was hopeful.
I feel like it's almost like a play on the idea that we come from stardust and we will become it again. It's that same kind of no ending, just infinite spreading out and coming back together, and like that vibe.
Yeah, because there's another line for that one that I commented on. And it had to do with returning to something. Can you say that again, Sarah?
Are you talking about the one after beyond what can be imagined by a finite mind?
Yeah.
When far beyond the year, the depths will feed the ethers, and I will be one again.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. And this lovely idea that the first person narrator isn't whole and will become whole. And we know what this narrator is writing about. And so, yeah, that part is also hopeful to me. That's probably why I read it, hopefully.
Mhm.
It's beautiful. Does anybody want to say anything else about this? Like heartbreaking but beautiful piece.
It's kind of a reminder that your life is only depicted by this short line on a gravestone, so you got to make the most of that short line, because no one's gonna like, I mean, unless they know you, like no one's really gonna think about what you did in your life. They're probably like, oh, this is how they were born and this is how they died.
Yeah.
You know, no one's gonna think about that in between time until there's nothing else to think about, and you know, except for memories and things like that. So
Right.
yeah.
Well, I moved away from my guilt about recycling, that's for sure. Randall, where are you going to take us?
All right. Some years I notice you several times when you spin your gossamer ephemeral masterpiece across the paths that I mow. As effortless as breathing, you trace paths and spirals that make Da Vinci weep, and it lasts for but the space of a breath. Your golden body sits hypnotically among the fibers, drawing my eye, extracting my woes and my worries like venom from a wound. Other years I barely notice you at all, scurrying about my own tasks with the same fervor you show in your web. I clock in and clock out, dedicated as you are in wrapping the unfortunate mills that find your Mona Lisa. At day's end, I am drained as they are when their empty husks fall away into the grass. Your egg sac hatches and your babies take flight, and in weary moments, I wish I could go with them. In 2024, I will strive to find beauty in my duties. Perhaps one day, as effortlessly as you do, ephemeral or not, these works are my own.
Randall, is this about the pretty spider?
It is.
The one that was, I think you guys put up a picture in Discord, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're trying to scare me.
Same, Sarah,
Spiders
same.
are
I'm like,
your friends. Spiders are friends. They're super important for the environment.
I tell
I
myself
know,
that every
I
time
know.
I'm screaming with my hair on fire.
I like the way it's hard for me to always connect between the top and the bottom, but I like the way you talked about the Mona Lisa smile with the spiders, because I felt like every spider I've ever met is mocking me. And here in Seattle, we have unbelievable amounts of spiders. See, we don't have other bugs, just spiders. So for me, it was the Mona Lisa smile, and I was just like, okay, spider, get it.
Did
It
like
made
the
me-
backwards draw of the venom. I thought that was interesting. That instead of a spider biting and injecting venom, that it was taking from you a thing that felt venomous inside you, I think, or the narrator.
Mhm.
You know, I think the point of the piece was more to think like, you know, spiders have this great beauty that they create that is, you know, that's just their day to day, right? And you want to find more beauty in your day to day. But it just made me think about, do spiders enjoy what they do, or do they also show up to work to make their web like, oh God, not this again. I wish I could be writing right now, you know?
Oh, that's what I was actually
God.
thinking as I was writing it. I was like, I was like, I really hope spiders enjoy this, because if not, I'm making a fool of myself right now.
Right.
I had the same thought too, so that's worth paying attention to if you revise it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, do you love your duties? I feel like assigning emotion to something that's biologically driven is an interesting concept anyway.
Yeah.
And there's the longing of this character. The character sounds really tired. The narrator sounds really tired. And the narrator says, I wish I could go with them. And then resolves to find beauty in the narrator's duties. And it tells us so much about a person who's like, boy, if I could just drift away, you know, kind of, I mean, they're probably going off to start life over and it's hard. So, okay, Lisa, thanks. Bye. Yeah, so, you know, it's fun to then return to that word ephemeral, which maybe seemed a little bit strong, you know, in the beginning, but it didn't once it got paired with ephemeral at the end. And then I think you said these words are my own, or was it works? And either
Works.
one with a K?
Mhm.
Interesting. Because it applies to words and duties then, which is
Yeah.
pretty lovely. Yeah. Was I picking up on anything you intended?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's nicely done. As usual, as expected.
I
Don't
love
ever
the
let us down.
imagery. I always love the imagery. Gossamer, ephemeral masterpiece. I mean, and then from there, it just went off similes and how you do that in 6 minutes. Oh, but
Randall's vocabulary is very impressive always.
Somebody used a word this week in their writing. It wasn't apricity, but it was like that. The word for the smell when it rains after a long time. You know what I'm
Oh,
talking about?
yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, love the word, but it was a feud between these like Southern families on either side of a railroad track. And I was like, I can't picture either of these families knowing this word. So anyway, yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
here we are. I kind of love the New Yorker piece, but we also kind of have to love Dorothy Parker. Which one should I choose? Because I don't know which one Lori's afraid of. I think I like the prompt with Dorothy Parker better, but I do want to encourage you to do the middle one. As Sarah can probably tell you, I had to panic choose this when everything went to hell this morning. So, pardon my French. So this is what we do in mix and meet with Birch Bark Editing, and these are cats. So don't, you know, I feel bad borrowing her work, but I had to do something on the fly this morning, and I'm sure she won't mind. So let's take a look at Dorothy Parker. Does anybody want to read Recurrence?
I got you.
Thanks, Randall.
Do you have it in the
Yes.
chat or is it just in Slack?
I am about to throw it in the chat because I'm a hateful person who hadn't done it yet. There you go.
All right. We shall have our little day. Take my hand and travel still, round and round the little way, up and down the little hill. It is good to love again. Scan the renovated skies, dip and drive the idling pen, sweetly tempt the paling lies. Trace the dripping, pierced heart, speak the faint, insistent verse, vow to God and slip apart, little better, little worse. Would we need not know before how shall end this prettiness? One of us must love the more, one of us shall love the less. Thus it is, and so it goes. We shall have our day, my dear, where unwilling dies the rose, buds the new, another year.
Nice. And I think that you can hear, obviously, Dorothy Parker's from a different time. And the style of this poem really reflects what was, I would say, popular probably during her time, with the rhyming, the 4 stanzas, the rhythm, all of it makes sense, right? Pretty sure it has a fairly iambic beat to it too. At least that's what, I haven't counted it out, but I think it probably is. Thoughts about this poem? Does it feel like it's in any way serious?
I would say so.
Yeah. Well, you know, we were just talking about like the language and the way it's written. My mind automatically filters this style as being serious, you know,
Mm.
because of it. It feels lofty, I think is the way to put it. And lofty in my brain is equal to serious.
Yeah, and I think, you know, you're pointing towards what people like to think is the difference between literary magazines and genre magazines, right? Or literary writing and genre writing.
Sure, yeah.
And there's a push towards lofty for those things. And yet, certainly the ideas can be similarly serious, right? Like, I respect a lot of genre writing, which isn't always true for some people. But I also deeply respect literary writing because they don't get anything fun to hang their seriousness on, right? So take my hand and travel still. You know, what's going on there? Who's taking whose hand, do you think? Or could you conjecture?
Maybe it's like a push to see the beauty in just mundane everyday things.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot like Major Jackson, though a lot differently written, right?
Yeah, it's hard to tell who this is necessarily like addressed to, like who is this like speaker speaking to. In the beginning, it almost feels like a parent-child relationship because you're talking about taking hands, going up and down hills. It feels very frolicky.
Yeah.
But the further it goes, the more I question whether that is the truth.
Yeah,
You
it
know.
feels like I agree. That first stanza feels very childlike, particularly because the word little is repeated so much, I think.
Right.
But then we move into stanzas where it sounds like we're having a love affair and it's a dying love affair. I mean, first it's new and then it's not, and one of us will love more and one of us will love worse and we'll say things we don't mean, and then there'll be another love. Like that is what it feels like to me. Like it's this like almost a continuous, well, don't worry, we'll do this and then it'll stop and then there'll be a new beginning. It's interesting.
So if we think in terms of symbolism or, you know, maybe thematically, it begins childlike. It moves into like a climax of love, right? And then it starts declining to how shall end this prettiness. And it gets all the way to where unwilling dies the rose, buds the new another year. To go beyond like a love affair, what other cycle are we possibly looking at?
Life?
Yeah.
Right. This could be the whole life cycle, right? This
Yeah.
could be, we start out as children, we get to the sort of prime of our life, and then unwilling, we're gone. But that doesn't mean sort of the human, like life doesn't go on, but it stopped for us. Bud's the new another year. That's another way to read this. I don't know. But it's fun. For example, like you see that Asan Grav that's over the word pierced. And so that's her saying like, trace the dripping pierced heart. That's the requirement for you to like articulate
Pronounce the syllable.
the syllable. Thank you. And so we're looking at this formal writing where we know the rhythms are a part of it. And it helps us see that she's describing a life rhythm as well. And it could be a love affair, it could be a whole life. I'm just saying there are a couple of ways that we could be interpreting this. So with that in mind, I really want to push us towards this prompt, which is to write a short piece, any of the things you like to write, in which you encounter a real or imagined past or future self. And then begin with the line, take my hand and travel still. And we'll just see what happens, you know? And you can, it doesn't have to be past or future only. It could be a quantum self, a version of yourself that is living parallel to you and has the infinite possibilities of how they are you but different, right? Okay, so On your marks, get set, right.
Oh shoot, that scared me.
You have about a minute left. All right, try to wrap things up, please.
Dr. Max, do you not have power too? Or are you guys without heat?
No, we have everything. I'm just getting cold.
No, I feel you. I am too. I was like, oh, a cozy hat is nice. I had a cozy hat right here.
It's still, even though the sun's up, it's still like probably minus 12 or 13. And this particular room, I have to leave the door shut. And anyway, I have a space heater going, whatever. It's just cold.
That's fine. I know. We're headed for that kind of cold next week. And they've already canceled classes in Ames where my daughter will be by the time by next week. And because they don't want the shins running around campus in that kind of weather,
Yeah, yeah.
for which I am grateful.
Because half of them will do it in shorts. So,
Well, that's, yes.
Yeah.
The question my husband posed to her a couple of days ago was, Babs, do you have any pants that don't have holes in them? Like jeans without holes.
right, right. You have to wear your little long johns under them. All right, so how did that go for people? Did you enjoy taking hands with a different version of yourself?
Mine is
I don't
short.
know.
Yours is short. Do you want to go first, Sarah?
Yeah.
That was such a lukewarm response, but okay.
And as your teenagers would say, brilliant.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. Well, we're ready for it.
Take my hand and travel still through the tangled spider webs that keep you fearfully inside the abuse and isolation of demonic possession. I will brush the web off you and check for lingering eight-leggeds. I will bring you to the other side of the street where hugs are healing, tickles appealing, laughter fulfilling, and the sun is shining. Take my hand and travel still as years flash by with or without me by your side. But know that my hand has not just imprinted on your hand, but on your heart.
That's lovely. Why,
Yeah.
why would you give it the brilliant? It's brilliant.
On your
Without
hand,
the-
on your heart is totally cheesy, but
sometimes it's called for.
Yeah. Especially the meaning behind like somebody who's going through all this horrible walks through a spider web type thing and gets them all brushed off and takes care of them. That's the person she knew it was actually brilliant versus that's the person who gets to print their hand on your heart. Not, that cliches come from somewhere, right? And it's not cliche if it's meaningful. That's all.
Absolutely.
Beyond me stomping on Sarah because she was sarcastic about a lovely little piece. What else do you all have to say?
The demonic possession line got me.
Yeah.
It made me pop out of my little shell for a second, like what?
Oh, that's where
I also like
turtle.
I liked the imagery of the other side of the street too. Dr. Max, you wrote that down also. Yeah, that it's a real feeling of being transported and being taken away from something. Almost like if you've gotten to the other side of the street, it can't get to you from there. Like that felt it to me. It was really powerful.
Yeah. And it's the place where hugs do something.
Hugs are healing, tickles appealing, which
Like that.
the
Yeah.
bent tickles is what that's counteracting.
Oh, yeah.
Laughter fulfilling and sun is shining.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's
Yeah, it had,
real binary, like Colleen is saying.
it had such a sense of warmth and like wrapping you up in it. It was I could really see the two sides of the street. That was really cool.
Thank you.
And very much the opposite of demonic possession.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else? Who's next?
I'll go.
Thanks, Randall. We're going reverse order almost.
Whoa.
Take my hand and travel still through toil and fire and blood. Just know the days of painted light still drown within the flood. I know the pain of weeping wounds define the man you are, because I've sat within that pain and now I bear the scars. I've wandered listless like a ship devoid of crew, Celeste, and looked within the barrel blue, though it hurts me to confess. Take my hand and travel still through sorrows grim but fleeting. The sun may shine tomorrow, death can wait for final meeting.
Wow.
Wow. Okay, I can't pull rhyming off like that. In that
That was brilliant.
that was amazing. Yeah, me too. I agree, Susan. Yeah.
Yeah. The barrel blue is a brief pause and then just and pardon the swearing I'm gonna do right now. Oh, holy shit. Right. I was just like, oh, I know exactly what that is. And it makes us sit up and say, don't get lost in the rhyming and rhythm of this poem. It's really a tough subject,
Mm-hmm.
but it's a hopeful one. Death can wait for the final meeting. I really love the section with the pain of weeping wounds that the narrator had their own and bore the scars, because it could be taken a couple of ways. And I know you and I know your background. So it could be something to do with actual self-harm, or it could be pointing towards things like stigmata and the religious reference to the wounds that Christ bore from the cross. And for you, that's a very serious play. If that's something that you're doing to kind of elide meaning, then wow, as usual in your 6 minutes.
Mhm.
Does anybody want to add anything else that stood out to you? Just all serious faces. We are so
The
far from
weeping
recycling.
wounds. The weeping wounds got me because, like as a person who's been through a lot of surgeries, not only was I actually weeping, but these wounds were weeping because they were giving up the life that they were holding. Basically kind of just giving themselves to the scalpel, because nothing's stronger in that point as a scalpel, because skin can't really fight off a scalpel. That makes sense. So yeah, it made me think of my own kind of experiences, and I think my own little brain just kind of took that poem and turned it into something completely not related to what the poem was about. So
It's the best kind of poetry.
Suzanne
It
threw
is.
in contingent realities there in the chat.
Yeah.
And that's exactly the best writing, the best poetry causes us to have that individual relation to it.
Right.
That was pretty amazing. Thank you for continuing to blow us away, Randall. Who wants to go next?
I can go next.
Okay.
Take my hand and travel still to the grassy hills and flowers, to the bubbling creek filled with trapped oxygen in the little bubble. Popped, oxygen gone. The air given to the rest of the beings. Take my hand and travel still to the same field, same meadow, but this time a gray, smoggy, desolate place. To the algae overrun creek that has no more to give. It's been drained and now has plastic floating on the top. A slap to the system that humans will drain life out of everything, even this once brimming.
I can't tell if the Zoom froze or you're trying to read your word.
I think she's frozen
Yeah.
because there's so little movement happening.
Oh no.
Oh,
Someone put to be
I'm back.
continued like the animes. Oh,
You're back.
okay. You're back.
there you are.
Okay.
You finished at
Wh-
once brimming.
Once brimming, once, oh God, once this once brimming beautiful space now is gray as the coal mines.
Ooh.
Mm. I like how, I don't know if it was intentional, but when you led off with our idyllic, you dropped just a hint of this like dystopian view you're about to give us when you described the trapped oxygen.
Yeah.
Because when you said that
Right.
first, I was like, oh, that's a mismatch. That's fun. And then you kept going, and I was like, oh, it was a clue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
It
the
really
word choice was foreshadowing.
Mhm. Felt like this one brings us full circle back to the first poem where we're talking about nature and beautiful places receding or being taken over um, by greed
Mm,
and desolation.
mm,
The
yeah.
that plastic floating on top, I was like, oh.
One of the pieces I graded yesterday was practically that story. So I love that there's a sort of a communal human theme happening with us that says, man, we're screwing things up.
Mhm.
Yeah. Eco anxiety is like really big right now. It's a hot word,
Yeah.
hot feeling.
I'm sorry I froze in the middle of that. It kind of was a natural cliffhanger, I guess.
It
Yeah.
was.
It was. We're all like, what's next? But you can't help if you freeze or not. So
No,
no problem.
no.
Nicely done. Thank you, Em.
Good job.
Who'd like to go next?
I can do it.
Okay, thanks, Colleen.
All right. I also went with a poem. That's the theme.
This one lends itself to it.
It kind of does. Yeah.
Mm.
Take my hand and travel still. I've been where you are before. Come and see beyond this thought. There are new ways to be. I seem more serene. Are you longing or afraid? Do I appear to drift above it, all untouched, emotionless? I tell you, it is not so, though I promise you shall be content. The road is long. There is yet sunshine to be had. The loneliness you feel will fade. The frustration, the impatience only drive inaction. Come now, and do not be afraid.
Nice.
Mm.
Clearly speaking to a past self.
Yeah.
Yes.
You could definitely sense that, how do you say, like guidance? What is the word I'm
Mhm.
looking for? It's not instructor, it's not teacher, but it's very much someone from above trying to
Like a
help someone
mentor?
below. Yeah, thank you.
That energy was really strong.
And also so truthful. Anybody who's had much life experience knows that as awful as a current moment is, it's going to change. And for the better, you know, I don't know about that, but the current situation you're in, you will get through. And particularly the ones, I don't know, I'm thinking of that piece I wrote about my divorce, you know, where I was like, when my husband dumped me, I was like, oh, I'm never going to be okay. But I knew I would. And I knew that like there was some future voice of mine in my head saying, just keep moving, you'll get there. And that's what this sounded like to me. So you brought in my contingent reality because it felt really true.
It's cool.
Yeah.
Right.
Just keep moving. That's the best advice that it's not Disney, it's Pixar, right? Who did Finding Nemo?
I think that's
Oh, yeah.
Just keep swimming. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You got in the feels too, Suzanne?
Sure did. Got me right in the heart.
Oh.
Powerful.
Yeah. Hard things are hard. And then something else happens. That might also be hard, but it's a different hard, or might be less hard. And that's part of what we write for, so people can maybe find people who share our realities. Yeah. And find instructive mentorship through them, maybe. A lot of memoir does that, right?
Yeah.
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 Colleen, that was great. Does anybody else want to tell Colleen anything else before I drive us onward?
I just love the message of hope. Like,
Oh, thank you.
People accuse people of being Pollyannas when they put hopeful, happy endings. And I will never put down a hopeful, happy ending. I think they're important. You know, and people will call that kind of writing sometimes unserious because they'll say, what are the stakes? And the stakes are having gone through what's in the middle, right? I don't think it's fair to say that we have to wallow in that misery and those are the stakes.
Yeah, I've always
That's
felt like
fair.
that mindset is very one-dimensional and uncreative to pretend that there's not validity to hopeful endings. Like
Right.
to me, it's more about how you reach those hopeful endings. And, you know, as long as the stakes have made sense up to that point, I think it's honestly ridiculous to try to reduce that all to just calling someone a Pollyanna for feeling that way.
Right.
Mhm.
Who's the one that said life is brutish, nasty, and short, and then we die? That's only one perspective, right? And probably from a depressed man.
Sure.
I mean, I know
Right.
I say man because I know a man made that quote. It's like Kant or
Yeah.
it's not Kant. It's someone like
It's a philosopher.
It is a
Yeah.
philosopher. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a man.
Probably whoever was really big into like nihilism or however you say it. Yeah.
Yeah.
There we
Same
go.
person.
Sounds like something my brother's read.
Okay. A quick Google will give it to you, but I'll just say I agree with you, Randall. We don't have to subscribe to that philosophy. We can choose a different one.
Well, it's like the idea that the tortured artist is the only artist, right? That's kind of what it perpetuates.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that what happened to my thing? I think that they helped perpetuate themselves because they, you know, wanted the world to see it like they did, right? Nasty, brutish, and short. Thomas Hobbes. I knew it was something.
There we go.
Okay, on that note, if I'm right, and I feel bad if I get it wrong, but I think Suzanne, Lori, and Jesse are still left. Yeah, okay, good. Who would like to go?
I can go. Oh.
Okay, so we'll go Suzanne, Lori, and Jesse's going to bring up the tail end of the, you're going to be our caboose today.
Choo choo.
Take my hand and travel still, and kiss her small hand in mine. There will be troubles ahead, I warn her, but you must always look toward the light. We skip through time. I distract her from the pain in the claws that try to tear at her flesh. Instead, I show her that if you take an ATV off a hidden trail, you'll truly see the magic of the world. We skip another beat. This time she takes the lead. This time to a larger boulder she claims is a dinosaur egg. We sit wanting to hatch the large creature so she may take it into battle. The milkweeds and buttercups stain our fingers with the golden treasure. We make crowns even for the egg before time seems to shift. I have to go now, but remember you're not alone. You'll find family and friends, and they'll help you mend the cracks you have gotten on the journey.
Oh,
Cute.
you went
Yeah.
way back.
Mhm.
What are
I like
favorite?
the
Yeah, go ahead, Justin.
your bit with the dino egg and that progression of writing it into battle. It's just so much fun, and I think it really kept like that childlike wonder that you played with on this. Making the crowns for it and all that stuff. If you decide to revise it, I would love to see you lean more into like the battle hardened language, because you do it a little bit with like battle and your fingertips are stained and stuff. And I'm just so ready for the full on Dino Wars like vibe.
Yeah, and I could really see like the Dino Wars that young narrator person is getting ready for is life, right? So you really could draw that thread nicely to say, you know, when you hatch that egg, the warrior will be you, right? I love that they're sitting on this egg hoping it'll hatch. It's just such a great.
Yeah. Such a neat kind of hopefulness too when if you read it very very directly, you know this is a stone. And so there's this weird, like enchanted and enchanting hopefulness. And we're sitting on this thing we know is a stone that is an egg that's going to hatch. It's just, I kind of really like
Yeah. Yeah, the road not traveled, Randall. I really like that observation as well.
Yeah.
And the idea, it had a real magical realism feel, which is it was realistic the whole time, but we felt like we were just right there on the liminal edge of magic, right? And maybe that's where magic becomes real in some ways, you know. It either happens or it's happened enough in our imagination. I don't know. I need magic.
You can always find it in a book.
That's right. That's right. Okay, Lori, are you ready?
I guess. It's light, it's just depressing for me. Okay.
Brilliant.
Take my hand and travel still through the mirror on the wall. I'm yourself, the self you see, a face free of wrinkles, brown hair that doesn't come from a box on the supermarket shelf. You squint, you change the wattage of the light bulbs lower and lower to hide the shadows under your eyes. You think age means nothing, it's just a number. And then you hit FaceTime by mistake on your computer, and there I am. Why is my 88-year-old father on FaceTime, you ask, before realizing I am you. You carefully place all the broken shards in bubble wrap so the garbage man doesn't cut himself on the fragments of mirrors in Tuesday's trash.
If you had to give this a title, my first thought is Youth and the Lies We Tell Ourselves. Just because.
Right, or anti-youth and the lies we tell
Right.
ourselves.
right. Well, captures such a startling truth, though, right? I mean, for anyone who is aging at any stage of aging, you can look at yourself in the mirror and think, "Oh, but that wasn't what was happening inside my head. Inside my head, I had this. There was a different picture, and I looked in the mirror and I went." So, I mean, I think it captures something that's really true.
It does. And age is only a number, and at the same time, age is a reality. It really is.
Right.
It's extremely disappointing to find out that I'm not going to live forever. Does anybody know that song?
Yeah.
I'm a bad singer, but yeah.
Actually, that was pretty good.
That's because my throat is sore.
I how you have such a distinct voice when you write. There's a frankness to it that I really appreciate. You know, there's like a slight tinge of humor, but to a degree, it's a little like self-deprecating. That's just very refreshing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Don't
there
kill
was like, there was an edge to it, right? Like I'm
Mhm.
seeing this and I'm saying some funny things about it, but you broke that mirror.
Oh, yeah.
right.
At the end of
Any
the day, it's
mirrors.
in the trash.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, and Lori, don't kill me for saying this, but almost an edgier, maybe Irma Bombeck type thing. Like you're hilarious, really
Mhm.
hilarious, and she dealt with serious issues. People just chose to see the humor more than the issues. But you're really funny. So, and don't kill me for comparing your writing to her. You're
Oh, not at all.
okay. I just remember finding her so funny way back in the day when I was reading her. So.
Mhm.
But you can't believe I can say I too have mirrors to break, but this stupid Zoom, right? I mean,
Mhm.
I was successfully not looking at myself for a really long time, and then we
Mhm.
see ourselves. And I'm like,
I
how do
honestly
make
did
mine
hit
smaller?
FaceTime. It's like, it looked like my father.
Mhm.
It's, you know,
Right. So there you go. That was actually my favorite part.
twice so far back from the screen.
Yeah. That was my 88-year-old father on FaceTime. And we're all going, oh, honey.
You're all saying
Yeah.
you do look like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you
Good.
for making us laugh and maybe cry a little bit,
Mhm.
especially me, because this is a big change. Contingent realities all over the place. Jesse, how about toot toot?
Yep. Toot toot. She made us laugh. I might cry a little bit. Bear
Okay.
with me because I've been very emotional this week and the
Oh,
week before.
we're
It's
ready.
fine.
You can cry
Okay.
with us.
Okay, thank you. Amenoko, take my hand and travel still, away from the crumbling house, shoji doors hanging off the sliding hinge, shattered windows and mugs. I think I'm gonna type it. Yeah, I'm gonna type this one out.
Okay, we're here for you.
Sorry, it's gonna
Right.
take a minute.
Now you
Can we have
to
like
start.
some like music or something?
Yeah.
Dr. Max,
I
sing your song.
want to
Yeah.
live.
Forever.
Whoa, no, I can't do the music.
if we can do a little Melissa Manchester, how does that go? Don't cry out loud. Hold it inside.
Well, at least Colleen can sing. Keep going.
Oh
Yeah, I'm
no.
not, if I start singing, you're all going to be crying.
Plus, I know all the words to that song. I mean, Colleen, you're younger than me. What the heck's going on?
Oh, I've met Melissa. I can call her by her first name. I'm sorry.
We have fame adjacent among us.
Yes. Well,
Mm.
so I had a 12-year career in alumni relations at Carroll University, where I got my undergrad when it was Carroll College. And at the end of the Capitol campaign, I worked in the alumni office and the development office, sort of shared some staff, and we're very close. So I was the only person with enough theater experience in the group to know like what a tech pack was and how to read a writer and how to like handle any of this like contracting stuff when you're talking about a big theatrical production like Melissa Manchester.
Right.
So I got to handle the whole show, and I did get to meet her at the airport, and she is a lovely woman. I don't think she had a stitch of makeup on, and she had like big curly hair, very long curly hair, and she just held her hand out and she said, "Hi, I'm Melissa," and let me take her hand, and it was charming. Yes.
Oh, lovely. I hope you know the words
But then,
to one of her songs.
well, and then her manager told me actually that particular song, which was written for, is it called Glass Castles? It was a figure skating movie in the
Yeah,
70s. Um,
it's got a book.
yes, And she said that sometimes Melissa does not love the message of that. Don't cry out loud, hold it inside. So she will actually sing the words the other way. Cry out loud, don't hold it inside.
Oh, nice.
What? I thought, wow, that's kind of cool. So then like I was listening for that all night. Is she gonna sing it? Will she sing it different?
That's great.
It was pretty cool. Yeah, she was pretty awesome.
Read I think it was called Ice Castles, or is it Glass Castles?
That's it. No,
Yeah.
you're right. It's Ice Castles. That's it. Yep.
And the main character, Lexi, with dried up oatmeal on her, has stuck with me. And I think I read it when I was 12 or 13, you know?
Oh yeah.
And it just,
I saw the movie probably about the same time, and it too just stuck with me.
all right. Do you want me to read aloud for you, Jesse?
Sure.
Okay.
That'd be great.
Take my hand and travel still, away from the crumbling home. Shoji doors hanging off the sliding hinge, shattered windows and mugs strewn across the floor, away from the guitars you saved to remember him. Take my hand and travel still, away from the scattered branches scratching lines in concrete dust. Photos strewn across state lines and the rooms of your home exposed to the sun above, away from the tattered flags you saved to remember them. Take my hand and travel still, away from the frozen screams of breaking trees, snow gathered in pots over the fireplace to flush the toilet and wash your face, away from the flakes of polish you wore to remember the days. Take my hand and remember that there are places to travel still when you must leave your home behind. You will do it time after time, but you must travel still. Oof. Yeah.
Oh, the places that have been left behind. Oh,
it's so violent. Yeah, goosebumps. I agree, Suzanne. Absolutely.
I have tears in my eyes. So
Me
if that's
too.
what you were going for, great.
yeah.
Yeah.
There's so much background to this that's implied, and it's done in kind of a flash way. So the repetition,
Yeah.
of course, is beautiful. And then to have like the shoji doors give us location, this idea that there's state lines gives us another location, and then snow gathered in pots over the fireplace, familiar, you know, really gives us a location, right? This isn't that isn't happening in Japan, right?
No.
Yeah.
No. So the first one is about the earthquake because that's where I lived.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah.
I want the violence of it. I also was loving because that's the kind of thing I would have wanted to know. And in fact, if you were to keep working on this piece, I would recommend that you just toss in a little, you know, a word or two, not these words, something to do with the unstable ground.
Yeah.
You know, like the young adult thing I asked everybody to read has an earthquake in it, and that feeling that what you thought was immovable moves.
Yeah.
Something along those
Definitely.
lines. Yeah. And then photos strewn across state lines.
Okay, so number one is Noto earthquake because I lived in the Noto region and the house is real. It's my friend's house. That is gone. The second one, yeah, it's bad. The second one, I am from Mayfield, Kentucky, which is the place that got hit by that super, super big tornado 2 years ago.
Yes. Oh,
Yeah.
So that is true stories about people finding their belongings in the other state after the tornado hit.
With that, such a powerful image, the rooms of your home exposed to the sun above, like right when the storm is over and the roof is gone.
Yeah, roofers have been making a lot of money here in the past few years.
I bet.
Putting them back on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was so powerful that my mind began to see it like it pushed the images even farther into the future. I could see the photos faded with the sunlight. Like it was, that was really powerful. Really beautifully done.
Yeah.
And then there's just some sort of you're showing that it's complicated to travel, but travel,
Mhm.
you must travel still. Like there's something to do with joy in traveling, or that we expect it anyway. But there's always
Mhm.
going to be that pain, or like, just sort of, there's going to be something that's at a minimum sentimental about leaving a place as well, even if you didn't love the place too.
And it seems even more loaded than that, like, right, not just travel, but like living.
Yeah.
It's
Persevere, yeah. I
not
went
just
through-
going someplace, but like even staying and traveling still.
And then travel is the journey of life, right?
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Are you okay, Sarah?
Yeah, I just saw the Slack chat thing, so I wanted to be here for.
Right, but you need to be on oxygen.
It's okay.
All right, we will hurry. So everybody, I am having a brief chat with Suzanne, Randall, Jesse, and Sarah as we finish up. But what? What a great weekend! I'm going to stop recording. What a great session, as always, right?